So I'd like for you to actually introduce yourself fully in a moment, but just as a little heads up, because part of the conversations we had earlier were about merch, and we were thinking, well, what could we possibly do? So for those of you who don't know, on our stage at From Me to You is an award-winning hip-hop artist. You have the title of hardest working human at the AIM Awards, right?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. And you have not only your music, obviously, but as a sideline on your website, you have an entire store, and I mean an entire store, full of amazing merch. So you must tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so we're talking T-shirts, hoodies, headphones, wristbands. My USB wristband is plugged in over there, which is going to play some music. Also my book as well. If any of you are into manga, anime, I have a manga series coming out, so please come and talk to me after that about that. But I also actually run a store which sells my music and merchandise. That's where I was in Derby in the N2 shopping centre, directly talking to members of the public about what I do and interacting with them on a one-to-one basis and selling my music and merchandise. And that's how I'm able to live entirely off my music and have done so for the past 6 to 7 years, I think, something like that, without a label.
So for you, merch is not an afterthought. Like, let's face it, to be honest, it is for a lot of us. It's very much an essential part of what you do.
Merchandise, I believe, is so integral to the artistic journey now, because we're not, let's face it, making enough money from our music in the traditional sense. You know, when it goes up on streaming, you're making pence as opposed to pounds. So you have to find other ways to monetize your artistic direction. And I think the great thing about merch is that you can get very creative with what you do. So I'm super into anime and manga. I taught myself Japanese. I was performing in Japan last year. So that kind of thing is a natural thing for me, and a lot of my fans are into that. So making a book along those lines is me. Now, for other people, everybody's got their own thing that they're super into, and ironically, I believe that the sort of people who gravitate towards your music tend to have quite similar interests in one way or another to you. So if you start making merchandise which is specifically geared towards your fan base and also towards your own personal interests, which is quite unique, I think personally that not only will it sell on a product basis, but it will also sell because people genuinely want this kind of stuff. And somebody walking around with your T-shirt on, that's free advertisement. You can't pay for that sort of stuff, you know? So why let Nike get it all?
I think that's worth a tweet.
Yeah, come at me, Nike.
So I'd like to ask you a few things. So I'd like to ask you about... so this next topic is like professionality and being in touch with your fans. And then I'd like to talk to you about the hustle. So I have to tell you that you made me feel like a super unorganized person in this event, because how you were checking in with me and like the updates you were giving me, just let alone today about on my way now, and this is my ETA, like this is my adjusted ETA, and like is everything confirmed? And it's just amazing how on it you are. And we were talking earlier on the management panel about, you know, there's still this perception of like our artists are creative, sensitive flowers that can't possibly have. That's not quite how they said it, but you know, you have to have like a management hat and a business hat as well as a music hat. And I think you're a really great example of you have no problem with those hats.
Well, firstly, I don't believe as an artist you can just be an artist anymore. That time is dead, unfortunately. So unless you want to invent a time machine and go back to those times, it's not going to happen. You have to be a creative business, because there's no other way to make your money. And until people get on board, you're going to have to do all of the little jobs that you start paying other people to do. But the great thing is, by learning those specific jobs, you know when somebody is messing up and when they're doing what they're meant to be doing. So thus far, I don't have management simply because I've had 2 managers in the past who couldn't keep up with what I was doing and kept asking me questions about it. And it doesn't make sense for me to be paying you 20% of what I make if I'm going to be doing all the work anyway. So I learned how to manage myself because it was a necessity. And I would thoroughly encourage everybody in this room, if you're an artist, to know how to manage yourself if you're not doing already. And even if you do have a manager, become a co-manager so that you are responsible for your musical direction and you know exactly what is happening with your musical career. It's not enough that you just make music now. You have to know exactly what's happening with your music. Anything that happens with your music you should be aware of. No person in your team should be coming to you and saying, oh yeah, all of this happened last week and now you're over here. You should already know. You should be asking them, what is happening with this? Have you done this yet? Because otherwise things don't get done. Ultimately, I believe you have to be the most passionate person about your music and your musical career and your musical journey and your musical business. And if you're not, there is something seriously wrong. Sorry if I offended anybody. I'm not really.
And you're also you're very good at keeping super close with the people who support your music. So can you tell us a little about that?
Because I don't know, I don't really want to be like super duper famous. I would like to be able to go to Tesco and buy some milk and not, wait, I'm lactose intolerant, so no. Okay, some almond milk and not get mobbed. So I think that there's two schools of thoughts with this sort of thing. You can either have millions and millions of fans in a label and they're taking 80% of what you make and you get a nice little cut on the end, or you can be independent, have 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 fans, all of whom are spending 50 to 100 pounds on you a year, and that's an income, and that's a very, very good income. If 10,000 people spent 100 pounds on you in a year, then you have made a lot of money for that year. So I think that the key thing for independent artists in particular is to cultivate each individual fan relationship. And there's a lot of my fans who I know on a personal basis. I know roughly where they live because they keep ordering stuff. I know their name. I know what's going on in their life. I just messaged one of my fans to ask him how things are going on with his upcoming baby. He's having a baby soon. So I just said, yo, how's that going? I just think that personal relationship means that people are not just listening to your music, but they actually care about you as an artist, and they start to care about your growth and your career and your progression. And that's when people start really spending money on what you do. So right now, I was listening to the crowdfunding thing. I actually set up a crowd. I didn't want to pay Kickstarter any of my money, so I built a Kickstarter-like app on my website. So it looks pretty much like Kickstarter, except it goes to me. So I've done that with my manga, and so far it's 20% funded. Really, really happy with that. And that's just, and everybody who supported it, I actually know who those people are because they've come to a show, they've messaged me, they've talked to me, they've come to the store. And, that's really cool to know that people are willing to support not just the audio, but the entire journey. And I think that that's the secret to really building longevity in this industry now.
I've done that too, by the way, that just built your own crowdfunding on your website.
It's so much better.
Yeah, and don't, people will, obviously just do your research, but don't shy away from things. Like before I did that, people said like, oh, but it's the money thing. They won't trust your website. Of course they will. I mean,
there are pluses and minuses to doing it in different ways. I've built my website to a point where people know that they can buy something from it, and I'm not gonna disappear off to like Barbados with their bank details. So, but Pledge Music, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, all of those are fantastic websites. So don't get me wrong. If you want to use that, definitely do. It's just that I wanted to keep everything in house because my company's called DIY Gang Entertainment. So I do really do it myself.
So talking about hustling and creating opportunities for yourself. You got some airplay on BBC One Extra.
I did.
I love. Can you tell us the story?
I did my time in the booth as a result of this. So I'm going to tell this story, and everyone's going to start turning off at One Extra, and they're going to hate me. So I don't know how you guys have what your relationships are with radio DJs and whatnot, but I think they're scared of me. So every time I send them emails and tweet them, nobody responds to me. So I personally believe that you get the best responses when you actually talk to people. Now, funnily enough, I know where all these DJs work, so I just decided to go to One Extra and hang out and just wait till the person I needed to speak to turned up. It was funnily enough, I walked into the Starbucks, which is opposite the BBC, to use the toilet, and saw Charlie Sloth in there. And I was like, oh yeah, Charlie, how you doing? Yeah, I was just around the corner for a meeting. Yeah, so anyway, let's talk about this track. And, I think that going to people and talking to, because we live in such a digital world where everything is so accessible via email and via tweets that people are almost scared to come out of their house and make stuff happen. But a lot of the big opportunities that I've had and have made happen has been a result of just walking out of my house and saying, I'm going to go and find this person today. I'm going to have a chat with him and see what happens. Not in a stalker way, kind of in a stalker way. But let's not forget that these people are also human beings as well. So it's not okay. You have to be very conscientious of the fact that you can't run up on them and start demanding things, because who wants to give something to somebody who feels that you owe them, you know? So talk to them as human beings, understand who they are, do a little bit of research on them. Some DJs I've seen, I know that, you know, one of them's had his daughter in an advert recently. So I asked him about that, and he seemed genuinely surprised that I took the time to ask a valid question other than, when are you going to play my music, you know? By setting yourself apart as just a genuinely nice human being who makes dope music and who just wants an opportunity, I think people are a lot more willing to help you out. But it really does help to actually go and put a face to the name and go and talk to them. So whether it be at an event or at a lovely conference such as this, or just run up on them at work, I truly do believe that actually... Yeah, that I didn't see him in the toilet. Sorry, I didn't tell that story very well. I was going to the toilet, and as I was walking into the toilet, he was in the line for the coffee. And I just had a talk with him, and I knew that he was filming for a TV show at the time, so I started asking him about that, and he asked me to write a song for the TV show. Unfortunately, it never came out. FYI, I'm on Ninja Warrior next year. If you do want to see me on TV. Because he is also a ninja. Yeah, I trained in Shaolin Kung Fu in China, as you do.
Last time we spoke about this, you said something that I thought was really true and interesting about meeting someone 2 or 3 times before you ask them.
The 3 meetings rule, yeah. So I also run an independent advice series on my YouTube called the DIY Gang Guide, which I would thoroughly recommend checking out if you want. I like to answer people's questions and do video blogs on specific questions. And there's a thing called the 3 meeting rule, which is, I think if you want anybody to do something for you, you kind of have to meet them at least 3 different times, you know, on 3 separate occasions in order to build that professional relationship before you can start asking them for stuff. So, for example, Phil Taggart from Radio 1, who's a great guy, he emailed me out of the blue asking for he was writing a book, and he sent me a questionnaire and asked if I could fill it out. So I did it within 10 minutes and sent it back to him just to let him know I'm that guy. And I sent him an email back and just said, look, this is me. Hopefully I'll meet you at some point. I then later saw him at an event, walked up to him and said, I'm the guy you sent an email. Hello, nice to meet you. Kind of left it at that, didn't ask him for anything. I saw him at another event, said, hey, remember me from the last event? He remembered me. We had a little chat, left it at that. The third time I saw him was in Brighton at the Great Escape. And by this time, he now knew who I was, knew my name, and we had a good little chat. We played a game where it's a Bruce Lee game where you put a penny in your hand and you snatch it out of their hand before they can close it. Yeah, you know it. And since then, every time I see him, we always talk about the penny game. So now he knows me well. So if I want to send him music, it's not a case of this is some random guy. He knows me as the penny dude. So those meetings really help when you want to establish yourself as somebody in the industry rather than just a leech who wants you to play their music, which unfortunately is how a lot of us artists are perceived, because we are so passionate about what we do. We're very myopic with what we do. It's tunnel vision. I see this person, I need this, nobody else matters, there's no one else in the world, I need you to do this. And you unfortunately need to take yourself out of that and start thinking about the person on the other end, on the receiving end, and start thinking about how you're perceived, because I guarantee you, if you take that time, they will be a lot more receptive to you and what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple of questions in the room, if there are any.
Please do. Don't hesitate. Ask me.
And I'm holding the wrong microphone that you guys... Oh, no, we've got a second one. Great. Can we have a round of applause for Dennis, who's helping with the sound all day?
In terms of merchandise, if you wanted to, I mean, I don't know how, for example, you came up with the headphones. If you wanted to create a product that relates to your fans, like my idea, for example, is I want to encourage other people to feel free to write poetry or lyrics or whatever. If I wanted to work with a stationery company to be able to create the best little journal, how would you go about collaborating with another company on the basis of trying to create some kind of merchandise, or how would you do it yourself or fund it yourself?
As soon as you said that, I was going to say notebooks, by the way. You don't even need to collaborate with a stationery company. You could do that right now. There's a company called Awesome Merchandise who do things like stationery products. We're talking pens, notebooks, little journals, diaries, that kind of stuff. If that's what you do, then I would fully recommend going down that route. You can even have like, the thing that you put in the book? I'm blanking. Bookmark, thank you, yeah, bookmarks. all of those things related to books, just with your logo on it, something very tasteful, something nice, and offer those at shows, on your website. I think generally at shows, if you don't have merchandise available, you're always missing a trick, because there are guaranteed at least somebody who's willing to buy something, but if you don't have anything to sell, they can't buy anything. So for me, making a notebook or something like that probably wouldn't work, but for you, from what I heard when I was standing over there, that would be ideal. So awesome merchandise, I think, would be the best place to start with that. And just get a short run, see how it sells, and then start reinvesting the money from the profit back into growing the business. And that's kind of how I did it. My pleasure.
Time for one more.
Hi, my name is Brian Condon. Thank you very much. Really good. I was just looking at your website as you were talking. Could you tell us a bit about how you're thinking about branding? Are you doing that? Is that coming from you? And obviously, you're a graphic artist. So is that part of the whole thing? And I'll also be interested in sort of how you intend to develop your brand.
Okay, so I'm not actually the graphic artist. I wrote the story for the manga. I commissioned a team in the Philippines who draw it, but I'm very hands-on with it. So we have a lot of meetings back and forth where I say that facial expression is not right, or he needs to be looking at this kind of thing. In terms of designing the merch, I do design everything myself, but I'm really rubbish at design. So I design the initial ideas, and then I commission a graphic designer to finish it. So I'll just get on Photoshop. I will do something similar to what I want. What am I wearing today? This, for instance, I designed the idea, but it didn't look as good as it looks now. I just said, okay, I want this here, I want these words here, etc., etc. And then I sent a image to a graphic designer who then finished it for me. And because I knew roughly what I wanted in my head, I was able to direct them. So you don't need to be able to do everything, but at least being able to do a little bit of it really does help. Then you can pay somebody to do the rest of it, and hopefully you can save a little bit of money because you've done half of the job for them. And sorry, what was your last question?
How are you going to develop the brand?
Develop the brand. Okay, so I just want to make cool stuff. In all honesty, a lot of the stuff that I have on my website is things I would just wear. So like the glow-in-the-dark T-shirts, the glow-in-the-dark hoodies, I just wear that stuff. So even the T-shirt, actually, I made one for my album launch party and wore it on stage. And it was only because my fans came up afterwards and said, do you have that on sale? I said, no, because I'm an idiot. And then I made it, and it's one of my best-selling T-shirts. So, it's just stuff that I like. And like I said, because my fans are similar to me, and because I've got such a strong relationship with my fans where I know what they're about roughly, and I know their age range and what they're interested in, I also know that largely they're going to like this kind of stuff. Touch wood, I've never released a piece of merchandise that hasn't sold. Even stuff that I was like, this is crazy, I'm just going to put this out there. It's still gone out because I'm so in tune. That sounds so full of myself, but I'm in tune with the people who are in tune with me. You understand?
Well, I lied. I think we have room for one more question.
Oh, good.
If there is one.
Please don't, ask. And it doesn't even need to be about me. If you just want to ask a question, I love to help and give advice, so yeah.
It's so basic. It's really, how do you structure your head to deal with all the spokes of your wheel?
There's like 6 compartments, each doing different things. There's a chicken playing a violin in one of them. It just, I think that what you have to do is just master each step individually. So I couldn't put out when my first album, I had to dedicate my entire time and focus on doing that because it was all new, didn't really understand it. But now my third album, I can do that whilst also planning a music video, whilst also writing the book, whilst also planning a tour, that kind of thing, because I've taken the time to really drill down and understand the exact processes. So I think it's just a case of mastering the craft on a one-to-one basis until you got it. It's the same with driving. When you start driving, first of all, you've got this over here, there's this moving, there's a car coming towards me, I don't really know what's going on, but eventually you get to the point where you can be on your phone and checking for the police at the same time. And I didn't say that. But the point I'm making is that the more that you do it, the more it becomes natural, and the more then you can take on other things. It's like juggling. You just get used to doing one thing, then you can add a second ball, you can add a third ball, you can add a fourth ball, then suddenly you're not sleeping. And that's my life.
When I feel sorry for myself because I'm very busy and very run down and very tired, there are a few people in the music world that I just look at their schedule and then I'm like, oh yeah, get it together. I'm actually not busy at all. You're definitely one of those people.
Currently,
thank you for all the inspiration.
it's a pleasure. Currently, I'm doing 12 hours a day at the store. I don't have a day off for 32 days. And then it's going to go from 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. in the week leading up to Christmas. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for driving down today
It's
and
a pleasure.
spending the time
I
for
love
us here.
talking to people, and hopefully, I've at least helped a little bit. But if you have any questions, hit me up online. Check out the DIY Gang Guide, etc.
Would you please perform a song for us?
I would love to. Yeah, this is good. Let's go. So this is from my album, The Way of Shao. Came out end of last year. I love music. Y'all love music? How's everybody doing? More excitement. I drove like 3 hours. Come on. Woo! Yeah! Stop it. Please give a shout out to the front of the house as well. I know he's tired, but he's doing a great job. See, I rap about like guns and drugs and stuff like that, so it's boring. So I really want you to listen to the words I'm saying. Can everyone hear me alright? Sweet. Let's go. Yeah, let's. Whoever told a nigga stopping was trolling, you better even if you're plotting and I'm plotting, you're coughing, you're not an equal. Above the sequel, God won't let me free fall. I guess I'm just a bird of prey. Call me an equal, lethal with the hustle, my muscles are so compared to struggle to love one, but these others are running scared. My music is a drug and there's some that's already dead. That's why I call it E, cause it equals an NC squared. Who wanna dare step into the lair of the brother bear? Cause I swear, I will rip a tear, leaving nothing spare. Yeah, I'm feeling in control like a battery original. You'll never find my soul in a factory. Athlete, naturally, you can't match me. Athlete on the track. If you fly, I'm becoming a Nazi. I open locked doors, I'm a boss, not a lackey. I'm seeing what I saw and I did it exactly as envisioned. By mixing rhythm and lyricism with ambition. I keep it different, that's why they listen, now I'm living. Who my musician, but still I'm digging for addition. Cause winning ain't different, it's hidden for vision. But still I've never folded in for the credit. I'm on a matter being on these bars, so you get it? First day I had to teach you about wordplay. A dictionary up on Broadway, that's a wordplay. That is a brand new page in my story. I'm showing you the path I take to find glory. The way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout. The pleasure, the pain, the pressure, the gains, the treasure, the strains. Yeah, I'm back again. The way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout. When I was young, I tried to run before I knew how to stand. I've learned to walk before I crawled. Understand I'm not standard, forward not backwards. If some maybes don't cut, and the honey is the only time I think about a butt. I'm legendary and that's me being modest. If I tell you I'm the truth, then I'm just being honest. I'm the guy following the vibe, trying to find freedom. Labels can't bridge because I don't need them. Meaning I'm competing behind your scenes, so a deal ain't me, bro. Give me your casino success in my glass, and that thirst can't quench. I wanna make money, so I taught myself French. Maintenant, je peux parler le français. Toute la femme aime faire le danser. Je ne peux pas cesser, je ne peux pas m'arrêter. Now bow to the Tao and then call me sensei. That is a brand new page of my story. I'm showing you the path I take to find glory. The way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout. The pleasure, the pain, the pressure, the gains, the treasure, the strains. Yeah, I'm back again. The way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout. The way you shout. A life without risk ain't a life worth living. Throw me in the sea and we'll see who's swimming. Ambitious but I'm patient, I've been poor and I've been caking. I know the secret of happiness despite the situation. Loving life, but still I'm ducking Cupid like a bee. I'm on an adventure while brothers taking arrows to the knee. I make music, make money, and I make girls scream. Travel to the world to come through and eat chicken and ice cream. That is a brand new page of my story. I'm showing you the path I take to find glory. The way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout. The pleasure, the pain, the pressure, the gains, the treasure, the strains. Yeah, I'm back again. The way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout, the way you shout. Thank you very much for being to you.